I'm Flower Moirai, Moirai. It's Greek. It means fate or destiny. Today, I invite you to join me while I make my 2023 January dress project. Before we do that, let me get to the 36 question psychology true love quiz game that I mentioned in my first video. Question number 2 is, would you like to be famous? And if yes, why or why not? My answer is no. Flat out no. I have zero interest in being famous. I'm doing what I'm doing now 100% because the people I want to know, that I want to be friends with, will not give me the time of day unless I am a somebody, or if they're being paid to do so. I completely understand why they have to be suspicious of everybody who isn't a somebody, because nobodies are more likely to be a stalker or a psycho. I think it's interesting that I'm actually taking steps to reach this particular goalpost, and I never did before. Maybe because Aaron is a YouTuber and not an actor or a musician like all the times before. Although I may be too late because he wore a gold band on this week's episode that he put out, and 2 weeks ago. But the one he did 2 weeks before that, he wasn't wearing one. But 2 weeks prior to that, he was. But in no videos before that. So I think he might actually be married. The old gods would have to really hate me to make me have a crush on a man at the very moment he gets married. But I don't think they're that evil. The biblical God is, and I know he hates me. But I think the old gods would not do that to me. The last time I got like this was over an actor, Matthew Gray Gubler. I wanted to have him as a pen pal, but couldn't find a direct address, so I wrote him letters. I wrote letters and sent them to the studio where Criminal Minds was being filmed. I did that for a whole year before giving up. I do not have a crush on Matthew Gray Gubler, just to be clear. Tuve una fiesta, sono innamorata di lui. Just to be clear. However, I am not naive enough to believe that will ever be a reality. Although I'm actually younger than Matthew while being older than Aaron, so age-wise it makes more sense. Alright, but yeah, I don't want to be famous because being famous is dangerous. Famous people get stalked, and famous people get shot, and famous people get robbed, and famous people have to lock themselves away in their houses, and famous people, it sucks being famous. I mean, yeah, you're rich, but money isn't all there is. Money is just one thing. You cannot have a real life if you're famous. I don't want to be famous. The only reason I'm doing anything to even draw attention to myself at all is because you have to be somebody to be friends with somebodies. And I want to be friends with somebodies. Call it narcissism. Maybe I'm a narcissist. I probably am. But I want to be friends with somebodies. And the only way they're going to trust me and know that I'm actually a good, decent human being is if I am in their income bracket. They're never going to look at somebody like me, poor as I am, insignificant as I am, and be like, oh, yeah, sure, I'm going to be friends with this nobody. I have to be important for them to give me any kind of consideration. That's why I'm doing this. Not because I want to be rich, not because I want to be famous, not because I want to be important, but because I want to be friends with the people who are. I would rather not have any kind of notoriety whatsoever. I would rather be invisible to everyone except for these people that I chose to be my friends. That's why I'm doing this. No, I don't want to be famous. Okay, back to the real world. The January 2023 dress project. Alright, normally I will only use 100% natural fibers, but I needed silk dupioni for this project. The silk was $24 a yard, and the polyester was only $4 a yard. And you see why I went with the polyester. For a long time, I was wholly against polyester, not only for myself, but for other people. Then I realized I was gatekeeping as much as those women who anger me in sewing groups. So let me explain this. All right. I have been strongly against gatekeeping. I know, ironic. I'm against gatekeeping, and yet I tear into people for using polyester instead of using 100% natural fibers. What is wrong with me, right? But here's the thing. You think gatekeeping and sewing? Really? Gatekeeping and sewing? People are going to do this? Right? Yeah, you wouldn't think it, but it's huge in sewing. Okay, especially since it's become a huge fad with the younger generations. Now, I was sewing before it was cool. I began sewing all the way back in 1997. That was the year I turned 17. I fell in love with the dresses in that mini-series North and South. You know, the one with Patrick Swayze, his big old floofy hair. Rest in peace. And I dreamed of dressing like that 24/7. Now, I didn't know that those were not historically accurate. They're historically inspired, and they're pretty dang close, but they are not 100%. But they are really close. Now, you can see me right now. I'm wearing a red tank top right there. See, this was filmed after 10 p.m. at night. You're lucky I'm wearing anything at all this late at night. I tried to cover my shame with that red pillow on my lap there. I haven't figured out how to make historical jammies yet. I actually sleep sky-clad, so after dark, after 9 p.m., it's a tank top and leggings for me. So you know what? Fight me on that, because I don't know how to make historical jammies. Yes, I do have chemises for all those sewing people out there, but I wear them as shirts. I wear them as undergarments under my clothes. And when I do try to sleep in them, they twist around me like a tourniquet, because when I sleep like an alligator doing that death roll when they grab hold of their prey and start spinning. And I will like literally spin all night long. So like every couple of hours I have to wake up, get out of bed, stand up, and untourniquet myself from the gosh darn chemise. And so it's just better for me to sleep sky-clad, because I have like almost hung myself a couple of times trying to sleep in clothes. So I'm wearing a tank top and leggings if I'm going to be doing anything after 9 p.m. You saw in the first video I was also wearing a tank top when I was doing my books. That was also after 9 p.m. I do my best filming after 9 p.m. What I'm doing here is I'm taking all that blue strips that I cut, and I'm folding it into bias tape and pinning it onto the white strips. Back to what I was saying. I learned to sew on my own with no help from the internet, from people, from books. Everything was trial and error. I had absolutely no help. All I had was fabric, thread, a needle, I don't know, an idea. I had a picture in my mind of what I wanted it to look like. I failed horribly so many times before I even made something that would stay together. The first thing, I had this golden yellow brocade. It was expensive and it was beautiful, and I was going to make myself a gorgeous gown. I had no idea what I was doing. Couldn't figure out how they did the thing with how they sealed the seams. Modern clothes, they use a serger, and I was trying to figure out how they did all those twisted folded seams, and so like I sewed a seam, and then I was like, oh, but it's right on the very edge. How'd they do that? Oh, they must have cut it off. So I sewed the seam, and then I cut the raw edge all the way down to the seam. So when I went and put the thing on, it just ripped apart and fell into pieces. It was so sad and pathetic, but I figured it out. It wasn't until like 2001 that I actually made something that could be worn out of the house. So that's like 5 years of error after error after error before I finally did something that would actually be worn. And I taught myself all kinds of different stitches for different fabrics and seams and ways of hiding raw edges. I thought they were all original until, I thought I invented them. I thought I came up with all these because, like, the internet didn't even become a common thing in the person's household until, like, well, at least in my household, until like the mid 2000s. I didn't have internet until 2007. I don't know, maybe I was just really poor. I don't know. Did you guys have internet before then? Because I didn't have internet in my house until 2007. I kid you not. I did not have internet in my house until 2007. So by then I started doing research, and I found out all those stitches that I thought I invented, they all had names, and they were already thought up by somebody else before thousands of years ago. And you're thinking, why the heck didn't you just go to the library? Why didn't you check out a book? Well, because I lived out in Middlesex, way out in the middle of the boonies. Yeah, see, I thought everyone in the past was just doing a basic running stitch. So I felt kind of stupid, and I did actually stop sewing for a while. I didn't sew for a long while because I was like, oh. In 2010, I got myself my first sewing machine. For a long time, I only used it to do like long straight seams and hems to save me time. Everything else went back to hand sewing. Slowly, over time, I learned to trust the machine more and more. His name was Stitch. It was a brother machine. I had him for 8 years. When he died, I got Thad. 7 years ago. The one you see me using now is Betty. I got her a year ago when Thad was in the shop because I couldn't stand not sewing even for a week. They are both Singer traditions. I use Thad for easy basic stuff and Betty the more complicated stuff. Even now, I still will choose to skip the machines and sew by hand. White chemise you see me wearing right there, that I sewed by hand, and the brown dress was sewn by Thad. Let's see. Oh yes, I brought up gatekeeping. and then I ran right by it. What I was getting to was that you can literally do anything and everything in sewing with nothing more than a needle, thread, fabric, and an idea. But if you join these groups on Facebook or watch sewing YouTubers or read sewing books, etc., they all go on and on and on about the specialized tools you need, and it must be this exact style or brand. And don't bother attempting it until you've taken all these classes and watched videos by all these people. Just say the word scissors to any of these sewers. Oh my God. Now it sounds like I'm gatekeeping. Sorry. I tried to tell everyone who asked, do I need blank? No, you do not. It may make your life easier, as I'm finding out now that I'm learning what all the different feet do, but you do not need it. All you need to do any sewing is a needle, thread, fabric, and an idea. That is all I had from 1997 to 2010. And I made, and still make, when I don't want to deal with Thad and Betty's attitudes, some very beautiful things. Don't ever let anyone tell you that you can't do it unless you buy something you can't afford. If you're feeling a little feisty, a little vindictive, and you want to have some fun, go to any sewing group and say, it's not important to press your seams. And then just sit back and watch them go off. I will talk to you all again soon. I love you.